I take most all of the employment calls. I might, go over them with Mike or another attorney, Jason Owens, that you might know that also works for our firm. But I draft notices, termination notices, FMLA notices. If you just have a general question, I can answer it for you. I just field all sorts of employment questions all the time and FOI questions and handle a lot of our cases. So I'm going to give you my information. So if you have any employment questions or FMLA specific questions after we go over this, you can reach out to me. Like I said, my name's Kaylen, and it's Kaylen, Lewis, Lewis. And my direct phone line is 501-205-7959. And if you have a question and I don't know the answer, or if you have a question and you're not part of the risk management fund even, I can give you some basic information, but I can always point you in the right direction and get you some information. And my email address is Lewis, Lewis, @rainfirm.com. I'm currently on maternity leave until January 8th. I have a 2-month-old. So if you reach out to me, I will get back to you right now still, but it might not be as quick. Normally I'm right on top of it, but it might not be as quick as I normally am for the next couple of weeks. Are the handouts already?
Yes.
Okay. So I just have a short handout that generally goes over the FMLA law. I don't know if y'all have grabbed a copy of the new model policies, but it goes into in-depth about FMLA and all the definitions and all that. And I'm here to talk more about how the FMLA applies practically in real life, and also I'm just going to let y'all answer questions, and a lot comes up through the questions that are more specific, and then if I have anything else to talk about at the end that I think we should cover that wasn't covered through the questions, then I'll address that. But the FMLA is Family and Medical Leave Act. It was really created to help with maternity leave and issues like that when people have medical issues. It's for full-time employees or someone who works 1,250 hours in the past 12 months. So someone has to be employed an entire year to be qualified for FMLA. So that's a big thing. So a new employee can't automatically get FMLA. You might have some sort of other leave in your policy that they might qualify for, but not FMLA leave. Also, 1,250 hours is not 40 hours a week, so you have to go back and look to see if they even qualify. So, and if someone's already taken some sort of leave, then they might not have that 1,250 hours from the past year. So that is something that you need to look at. I'm not very comfortable with a microphone, so if you can't hear me, let me know. Or if I act awkward holding it, let me know, because I don't talk with a microphone very often.
So this is not full-time, it doesn't necessarily have to be full-time, they just have to work
1,250 hours. So, I'm not exactly sure how many hours that works out to a week, but it's not 40 hours a week. It's, I think, like 25 or something like that. And so, yeah, 1,250 hours in the past 12 months. And they get 12 weeks of leave in a 12-month period. So that's what FMLA leave is. Definition, which seems pretty easy, but it gets a lot more complicated than that, as I'm sure that you know. There's exceptions and just all different things that come up. One thing that can happen with FMLA leave in the 12-month period is how you run your leave. So you can, there's 2 different ways really to do it, or 3, I guess. You can do it from January 1st to December 31st, which is the easiest way to calculate it. Like everyone's FMLA leave begins on January 1st, and goes through December 31st. The only reason that you might not want to do that is because technically someone could take 24 weeks instead of 12 weeks, because they could take the last 12 weeks of the year, and then on January 1st, their FMLA leave would start over, and then they would get 12 more weeks, so that they would be able to stack that FMLA leave. But most of our counties that I deal with do January 1st to December 31st because it's the easiest way to keep track of it. But if you only have one person out on FMLA leave, you might not want to do that. But it's something that's in your policies, and you have to apply it consistently across the board. You cannot change it per employee. It has to either be January 1st to December 31st. And the second way you can calculate FMLA leave is for when people actually take it. So you can start it from the date of their start of their FMLA leave. So say they started on October 1st. That year would be from October 1st to September 30th. And they can take 12 weeks within that time period. The other option, which is great because they can't stack 12 weeks and 12 weeks, but you have to keep up with each individual employee's start date, which can be really troublesome. The third way is to use your fiscal year. So if you don't have a typical January 1st to December 31st, if it's October 1st to September 30th, you can use your fiscal year and do that. So that's the 3 different ways you can calculate FMLA leave. And as I said, you can do whatever you want, but you need to apply it consistently. And if it's in your policies, and I don't think that we address that specifically in the model county policies, you need to probably do what's listed out in your policies. So there's reasons for FMLA leave. It's your own serious health condition, pregnancy, disability, to care for a newborn child, which I'm currently doing, just not today, and to care for a newly adopted child, a child recently placed in foster care, or to care for your own child, spouse, or parent with a serious health condition, and to care for a covered service member. A serious health condition is one that requires inpatient hospital care or a 3-day incapacity requiring continuing treatment from a doctor. So that's the one that comes up the most often, is your serious health condition. So that's either you're hospitalized or you're going to miss 3 days and you're going to see the doctor all the time. So if someone's out for the stomach virus and they miss 1 day, or for a cold virus and they miss 1 day, that's not going to qualify for FMLA leave. It's more, if someone has pneumonia and they're going to miss a week or 2 weeks, that could qualify for FMLA leave. Or if someone is having surgery that, for a broken leg, that's going to qualify for FMLA leave. Also, more serious conditions or chronic conditions such as cancer, Alzheimer's or anything like that, they can get out to be covered by FMLA leave as well. But the most important thing is the 3-day incapacity. So as soon as you reach that 3-day limit, something should trigger in your mind. Okay, this person's missed 3 days. Is this FMLA leave? Should I reach out to Rainwater, the AAC, and talk to them about this? Like I said, if they're missing 1 day for the stomach virus, not so much. But as soon as they miss 3 days, either call us or call Brandy and ask us, hey, do I need to give this person their FMLA paperwork? Because technically, they do not have to say, I want FMLA leave to be entitled to their FMLA leave. We have some duty to recognize, okay, this person might need FMLA leave.
Does it matter as far as if they know they're gonna be sick and they wanna take their vacation time and then they come back and all that 2 weeks vacation is gone and they're still out?
Well, and that's what I'm getting to next, actually, is FMLA leave, we always want to run it concurrently. And so that's one of the biggest issues that my counties that I deal with, is they let someone take vacation, then sick. So say they had 2 weeks vacation, 2 weeks sick, they've already missed 4 weeks, and then they're saying, okay, I want to terminate this person, they've already used up all their leave time. Well, let's talk about, are they entitled to FMLA leave? Yes, they are. Okay, well, now their 12 weeks begins. So they've already got 4 weeks, and then they're going to get 12 more weeks, so that's 16 weeks. And if someone has really accrued a lot of sick or vacation, then that could really add up. But we need to always be sure that we're running our FMLA leave concurrent with our other forms of leave. You can run them at the same time, and so is what that means. And so if you're paying them sick leave, then they also are taking their FMLA leave all at the same time. So they're not able to add it up and build it up. So say if someone is out for sick leave and you recognize that and they're going to miss 2 months, then and they're going to take their sick leave, you automatically say, okay, this is also FMLA leave. We need to provide you the paperwork to fill out and complete this, so it's running at the same time.
So they would get the 2 weeks sick leave plus the 12 weeks?
Not on top of each other. So it's running concurrently, is the way we put it, and it's the way it is in the policy. So it means that they get paid. FMLA leave is unpaid medical leave, and so they can get paid for those first 2 weeks at their sick leave. So you're taking your 2 weeks sick leave at the same time as you're taking your FMLA leave. It just means that they might get paid for those 2 weeks, and then after that they can take their 2 weeks vacation, and they might get paid for those 2 weeks. But then after that they can continue taking 8 more weeks, but they're not going to get paid. Okay. Any other questions about that? I know that can be confusing. Yes?
I have a scenario in our county right now where we have a lady that was off in October, and we provided her with FMLA paperwork, but she never returned it.
Okay.
And then she has another situation going on where she's missed like 15 or 18 days already unpaid.
Mm-hmm.
And then she's got another mean, where does her responsibility fall, I guess?
Okay, so she does have the responsibility to return the paperwork. Usually what we say, this happens all the time, is we send them a letter, we can send it certified, send it, however, that we know for sure that they got a letter that we're saying, here's your paperwork, your FMLA leave is starting on the date that you started missing for this issue. And technically, you can terminate for their failure to turn in the paperwork. You have to give them 15 days to complete it. But what we usually say is, we're gonna give you your 12 weeks, and we're still waiting for your paperwork, but we're gonna give you your 12 weeks. At the end of the 12 weeks, we're gonna terminate you. And we give them that date in the notice. And that's something that I prepare for people all the time. And so if y'all need something like that, just reach out to me. And so we say, this is the day your FMLA started, here's your paperwork, this is what we need from you, and from our calculations, this is the day that your FMLA leave is ending. Obviously, it's ideal to get their paperwork, because I don't know if y'all have looked at the FMLA paperwork, and I didn't include it in the handout, but the doctor has to, generally describe what their condition is and when their expected date of return is. And so, that way, if it's past that 12 weeks, we can send a letter back to them and say, we don't, we're gonna give you 12 weeks, but we're not gonna give you past the 12 weeks. And there's issues that we can point out in the paperwork, but they don't have to, they are supposed to technically turn it in, but we usually give them some leniency there. Do you have any other questions about the concurrent leave or anything like that?
Okay, you're not talking about just any little 7-hour sick day that you start counting on that. It's got to be for a specific.
Yes. And there's definitions in here and in the model policy. It goes in depth into the legal definition of a serious health condition. But you have to have either in hospital care, so you're hospitalized, or you've missed 3 days. You have 3 days or more where you're incapacitated. So, I guess if you had the rotavirus and were very, very ill and you had to be hospitalized, technically, I guess that's technically a form of the stomach virus. That might qualify for FMLA leave, but most of the time, no, it's not.
What about shingles or kidney stones, and they miss their 3 days at the doctor's?
Yes, that would qualify.
Not in the hospital.
Yes, because if they miss 3 days where they're incapacitated, where they can't work, and then they're seeing a doctor for the condition, and then the doctor is willing to provide a medical certification saying that it qualifies for FMLA, yes, it does. And I can see kidney stones, and I'll talk about this in a second, but kidney stones I could see being an ongoing condition where they would be entitled to maybe intermittent FMLA leave, where they're not taking it consistently, but something comes up, or shingles I know can have flare-ups, so that might
They
be.
would have to miss the 3 days.
Yes. Well, and I'm not sure because I'm not medical, I don't have a medical degree or anything, but some of those conditions might be chronic, end up being a chronic condition that might qualify. I don't know.
Does it have to be 3 consecutive days?
Yes.
Okay.
For that, but like I said, it could also be a chronic condition where you're just getting regular treatment, or you could have to be hospitalized. So you can do, take it from away. There's different things, but most of the time the serious health condition is what it falls under. Maternity leave or caring for your newborn child, or caring for a spouse, child, or parent that has a serious health condition. Those are the top 3 reasons. Do you have any other questions? So again, like I said, it's concurrent. That's the most important thing, because that's, I feel like, how we get taken advantage of in our counties so often, is that we forget to run the leave concurrent. So that's just something that we just have to keep in mind. Trigger FMLA leave, I need to call Kaylen and ask her about this and make sure it qualifies.
But you say that it runs concurrent
Yes.
for 12 weeks straight.
Yes,
But if they have, say, dialysis,
yes,
they work 3 days a week, off 2, or
Yes.
off, work 4 days, not 1.
yes.
Every other Friday, every Friday they go.
That's intermittent FMLA leave. Go ahead and finish your question.
So, yeah, so that's what I'm asking. So that wouldn't be 12 weeks straight.
No, and I'll get into that in a second, but there is a thing that people are entitled to for intermittent FMLA leave, and so it's so much as if someone has a migraine condition and the doctor has provided a medical certification and they have a migraine that day, then they can take FMLA leave. And so the way that works is you just add it up throughout the 12 weeks, or throughout the 12 months. They only get 12 weeks, and they might only take 3 days here and there, but they still only get 12 weeks total. So that's pretty hard to calculate. And if y'all have any questions about that, y'all can reach out to
But if they
me.
only take one day, not 3 straight, that still is applied to that 12 weeks.
Yes, because it's the initial certification that is the serious health condition where they either are hospitalized or, that's their initial condition where you get the medical certification.
Okay.
And then after that, they can take it intermittently. So again, like I said, on my handout of qualifying employee, we already went through that and talked about who qualifies and how many hours they have to work. And then we also talked about intermittently, the employee essentially they have a reduced work schedule. So if someone has cancer and they're having to take treatments, do chemo, radiation, and they're needing to take off, they can do that and then still work some, but take off and go to their treatments. Here about medical certifications and the paperwork that we provide them, they can provide us with medical certification. A lot of times when we get medical certifications and I review them from my counties, they're not complete, or the doctor just halfway filled it out, or they're very, very vague, and we don't really believe it, or we don't understand what's going on, or it doesn't say when they're going to return to work, and so we can ask for a second opinion and provide, but we have to pay for it, and for the employee to go to a doctor of our choosing. So say they send that employee to the county doctor, and then they have their own doctor, and their opinions are different. Then we have to pay for them to go to a third doctor, and that third doctor is the deciding opinion. But so there are ways, if we don't believe them, that we can ask for a second and third opinion. I rarely recommend that, but there are definitely cases where we think someone's just lying or forging signatures or doing whatever, that we are going to send them to a different doctor. And do y'all have any questions about that?
What if the physician doesn't state the exact issue, but we know that the person is going to get into a hospital and have surgery, and the physician has requested them to be out 6 weeks, but they haven't told us
On the form, if it's completed, there is a place where it says why they are going to be incapacitated. It might not say specifically what the exact condition is, but it makes them list out why they cannot perform their job duties. And so that should be enough. If it's not completed, then we need to ask for them to complete it.
So if it just says surgery out 6 to 8 weeks,
Mm-hmm.
doesn't it need to be more specific?
You can ask for it to be more specific. I feel like typically that's what a lot of our say, and I go with it. But if we don't believe they're being truthful, or we don't believe that they're actually going to be out for 6 weeks and they're taking advantage of the system, then I think it's fine for us to go back and ask for more specifics of why specifically they're not going to be able to perform their job duties. But I feel like, that's something, if we think they're not telling the truth. I don't think that we have to do that every time.
If we on top of elective surgery, do we have to give them the 12 weeks?
I've never had that issue come up, like a cosmetic procedure. Mike, what do you think about that? I've never had that come up, and so I would have to do some research on that and see. I don't.
The medical insurance doesn't pay,
Yes.
but then if something happened because you had that.
Yes, if something happened to
The medical insurance still won't pay.
yes. Well, and I recently did some research on fertility treatments, and whether FMLA covered it, and it was kind of up in the air about whether or not it was, because it depends on what specific condition was causing that, and it depends on what your doctor is willing to do. If your doctor is willing to fill out the paperwork for you and say it is. And so I feel like probably with a cosmetic procedure, if someone wanted a nose job, the doctor's probably going to be willing to say that was a deviated septum, and that probably would be covered by FMLA leave. Yeah. So that is something I would have to research. If you have it come up, feel free to call me and I will definitely research it, but I've never had that specific question. We don't have very many people asking for FMLA leave for cosmetic procedures. Do y'all have any other questions? Specific things that have happened to you guys that y'all have questions about? Yes, ma'am? Mm-hmm.
doctor's certification was he had a chronic illness would need treatment. Well, I kind of got some of that.
Mm-hmm.
But then since we doubted some of the issues he was having, I required him supposed to call in every Monday because he's supposed to be going to all these doctors
Mm-hmm.
that no one really kind of knew what was going on, but instead he would just text saying, I'm not coming in. Not giving us any updates. Any updates had to be done, we had to go get it ourselves.
So were you going to him to get the updates?
Yes.
Okay.
We physically had to go to him if we wanted to know something.
Mm-hmm.
He texted every Monday, even though he said call, he was on the paperwork to call, highlighted, underlined, he could have been any clearer. But then miraculously, he said all it was an infection, and he was coming back to work, and he was going home. And that was 2 weeks prior to the end of it. So it really kind of got frustrating, and what do you do in that kind of situation? I mean, everything is, we had to do it. That employee did not do their part, so I'm not coming in. No doctor, no, any type of update. Everything we heard was secondhand or somewhat through him. Because his last thing to us was, well, I guess I'll just have to quit and won't be back, and I'll just get another job next year, and I'll be on my wife's insurance. And then all of a sudden, it's an infection.
So probably in that type of situation, if I got that phone call, you can require them to call in. There are an area of the law called FMLA interference where you can't require them to report to you too much. Like having them call in every single day to give them an update is not, it's not good. Like we could get a lawsuit over that. Depending on what his medical certification said. So if they said that he had a full 12 weeks and he wasn't calling in, I would still give him the full 12 weeks.
Right, we did it.
But if they said he had 6 weeks and he still hadn't come back and he wasn't calling in, then we could terminate.
We
At
just
that
had so
point.
much misinformation that he was giving such leading information to different ways,
Mhm.
so we felt like for him to report in on Monday, because every time for him, it's supposed to have a doctor's appointment.
Mhm.
And we would just never even know what was even going on.
And in a situation like that, that might be where you want to send him to a county doctor, or, not a county doctor, but a doctor of the county's choosing. And get a second opinion, and, the county has to pay for that. But if you don't really know what's going on and you can't get a clear answer from the doctor, and the doctor's not going to tell you if you call them, obviously, because of HIPAA laws, then that might be a situation where we want to refer them to a county doctor. And if they don't say the same thing as his doctor, then we'll refer them to a third doctor, and we'll go with the third doctor's opinion.
He was just never clear about anything to do with different ailments every time he got around.
So that's a perfect example of when we might refer them to someone to get a second opinion, even though the county has to pay for it. Yeah. Do you have any other questions, specific examples of anything that's happened that you have questions about? I know recently we had a phone call, and Tom helped handle it, where an employee was out or was taking FMLA leave, and they called, and the county called and asked when FMLA leave should begin. And, it kind of depends on the situation. If we know that they've been out and we've been warning them, you need to take FMLA leave, you need to take this paperwork, or complete this paperwork, complete the medical certification, then we can refer back to the beginning of the first day of events. But sometimes in certain situations where we weren't aware of that, or we weren't putting them on notice and they weren't putting us on notice, it's best to take the most conservative approach of the day they complete the paperwork or something like that. So that's an issue that might come up in your, that you want to call us and ask about, hey, what date should we actually begin this FMLA leave? So that's something that has come up a lot. Sorry, I thought someone had a question. And one other issue that comes up a lot with with FMLA leave is employee benefits and health insurance. I'm sure that someone mentioned in their letter, I think, that you owe us this much for your health insurance. So the law under FMLA says that you have to keep the employee, you have to continue paying your portion no matter what. So even if the employee's out and you pay for 25% or 75% of their insurance, you have to continue paying that 75% while they're on FMLA leave. And then they technically can pay their 25%. But most of our counties pay that 25% for them. So their insurance continues on. Because, a lot of people on FMLA leave are not going to be paid, and they're not going to be able to afford their insurance, so we usually pay that for them. And because the reason that we do that is after FMLA leave ends, they have to be restored to their same position that they were before they started their FMLA leave. Well, if they can't afford their insurance and their insurance lapses during that time period, some insurance companies might not let them pick their insurance back up after that 12 weeks. So it's best to continue to pay it so they can have their insurance back at the end of that 12 weeks. If they don't ever come back to work, like she said, you can send them a letter asking for the money. A lot of times it's, not fruitful to pursue that money. It's just a loss. But, there are things that you can do, and that's just another issue that if you want to have questions about benefits, because it can get complicated, or pursuing the money, if they don't ever come back, just call us and we'll talk about it. Yes, ma'am?
Would you say you would pay like health, dental, vision, supplemental insurance, Aflac, or life insurance?
I have done that research before previously, and I do not think that we have to pay for supplemental insurance. I think it's the core insurances. But if you have that question specifically, I'd like to double check that and just confirm it, because it doesn't come up a lot. But I do not think we have to pay for supplemental. We do have to pay for the core insurance benefits. Any other questions? Yes, sir?
Holding the position open for them for the time that they're on FMLA, are there exceptions to that? Because I can envision where that could be problematic.
There are exceptions to that, to FMLA leave, but it's a very, very particular exception. It's called the key employee exemption to FMLA leave. And it's, they have to make the top 10% of the, make the highest amount in the company, and there's a salary part of that. And I don't have that even in the handout because it doesn't come up very often. But if you have an employee that is crucial to the company or to the county, then they might not be entitled to FMLA leave or be entitled to be restored to the same position. I can see it coming up in a private company. I did some private practice as well, and before I came here in an employment area, and I can see it coming up in that area with a CEO or something like that more than I can see it coming up in the county. Most all county employees are going to be entitled to FMLA leave, but there is an exemption. If you ever think that that might come up, let's discuss it thoroughly. We need to discuss the employee's job duties, their salary, and everything before we make the determination that they're not entitled to leave or entitled to be restored to the same position. So going through some of the paperwork that is required, and we can talk about that. I don't know how many of you have looked at the Department of Labor paperwork, but it's pretty, the Department of Labor's website's pretty easy to use, and it's pretty spelled out for you. But within 5 days of receiving notice from the employee, you need to give them their notice and rights of designation of FMLA leave, and you attach a medical certification to that. And that's if the employee comes to you and says, I want to take FMLA leave. Now, in our situation, I feel most common for us is employees don't even know to ask for FMLA leave. It's more us saying, I think that this might be FMLA leave, here's your paperwork, fill this out. But if an employee comes to you and says, I want to take FMLA leave, you need to give them the paperwork within 5 days. And then they have 15 days to return it to you. So if it's not within that 15 days, I always tell people, put it on your calendar, bookmark it, we'll send a follow-up letter. And then typically, I don't recommend terminating at that point, but we can discuss it and go further if they haven't provided their paperwork. One other issue that comes up a lot is the American Disabilities Act with FMLA. And there was a recent case law that might have changed this a little bit, but if someone has a condition that you believe is a disability, which under the law today, a lot of issues can be considered a disability, and they need to take more than 12 weeks. If it's 1 or 2 weeks, it's probably, we'll call us and we'll discuss it, but it might be best to extend it. If someone has a chronic condition or something's wrong with their back that's making them disabled, let's give them 1 or 2 more weeks. Let's give them 14 weeks. So we don't get a disability lawsuit against us. Let's not terminate them at 12 weeks if they're going to plan on coming back in 2 more weeks. It's kind of what I think about that. Now, if they say they need 6 more months, I don't think we should give them that. But if it's just a couple of weeks, we should probably give them that. Do you have any other questions? I can give y'all some more real life examples of things that have come up in my practice. one was an employee had cancer, and she would never provide her paperwork, never turn it in, and we eventually, and then she also had the extra 12 weeks because they did January to December 31st. And so she had 12 weeks in 2015 and 12 weeks in 2016, or 2016 and 2017. And so eventually we had to terminate her. She wouldn't provide us with information. She wouldn't provide us with the paperwork. She never told us when she was going to return to work. She was missing days that weren't explained. You know, she was going to get cancer treatments, and her doctor said that she would have to miss intermittently on the paperwork. And she was missing days that were not explained. And so we eventually terminated her. And she filed a charge with the EEOC, and we responded and went through all the details of how, you know, what we were provided, what she gave us, why we terminated her, and we won with the EEOC. Now, she can still file a lawsuit against us, but she hasn't yet. But we won that one with that EEOC. Yes.
How would you, if you got a call from a client and they indicated that they've got an employee that's been out for, 3 or 4 days, but they haven't called in, and, through the rumor mill, there's, hey, well, they were in a car wreck, or they've got this medical issue, or something going on, but it's not directly from the missing worker. How would you talk to the county about handling that situation?
In that case, I think that I would send a letter to the employee that says, we believe that you're entitled to Family Medical Leave Act beginning on this day. This is the paperwork that you need to have completed, and this is the ending date of your FMLA leave. This is when the 12 weeks is up. Please reach out to us, and I always try to throw in some language that is really sympathetic. We're so sorry you're having to go through this. I know that this is probably the last thing you want to do right now is complete paperwork, but technically we need this paperwork to get, your job done, or, to get this situation worked out, so please get it to us as soon as possible. And in a car wreck type situation, something like that, you might give them more than 15 days. I usually give them more than 15 days anyway, but especially in that situation, give them a little bit extra time to get the paperwork to you.
Even if it's just a rumor that, again, the employee didn't call in and say, or their family didn't call in, it's just, hey, this guy's coworker, buddy,
Yeah.
said he had a car wreck, and you still gonna reach out in that scenario?
I would reach out, and if he doesn't respond back or doesn't give us the paperwork, then we're gonna, say, hey, we're gonna have to terminate you unless you reach out to us and let us know what's going on. Give him a week. Still doesn't reach out to us, all right, here's your notice of termination.
Okay.
But, most of our counties are small, or we know what's going on, and if we hear a rumor that someone's in a car wreck, they're probably gonna have been in a car wreck, or they're probably.
Can I make just one little comment? There's a lot of strategy involved in FMLA, and we really want them to have FMLA leave, because we want them to go ahead and use up their FMLA leave. You see what I'm saying? What you don't want them to do is stack it. We have a little bit of a technical point here, and that is that FMLA leave is not always synonymous with sick leave. But we want it to always be synonymous with sick leave. So anytime they're out and they're sick, you want to go ahead and count that as an FMLA day. So what we want to do is help the employee choose that as an FMLA day. The way I've always done this, I just treat every time they're out sick, that's an FMLA day. But technically under the law, we have the affirmative duty as the county to go through all these details that Kaylen's been telling me about. The reality is, we know more than the employees know about this, and the reality is we want them to use their FMLA days. Because if you don't, you end up, they've exhausted their sick leave days. And they still got you on the hook over here because you cannot do anything during this 12 weeks of FMLA. So our policy says that all available leave days run concurrent. So trying to be proactive and help them to designate this as FMLA. Fill out the paperwork for them. Make it easy for them. Because we need the FMLA days to be burned at the same time the sick leave days are being burned. Does that make sense to you?
Is your comp days included in that as well?
Yes, all available leave days. Now, if you're out on sick and you're getting let's say you've exhausted your sick leave pay, but you still want to use pay, well, you're going to reach over and use your comp time. Then you're gonna get all your holiday time. We want them to burn up all of that available leave time and get paid under the leave time provisions, okay? But burn up their FMLA days at the same time so they don't stack it on us. We can force them to run it concurrent. We do that by our policy. But we also have to do that by our procedures. And that's where you are going to have to affirmatively help them get their FMLA paperwork. You know, they don't have to wait for 3 days. It's just that after 3 days, you know, we can force the issue with them. But before 3 days, we can still call and say, hey, you sick today? Yeah. We're going to count that as an FMLA day. You agree? Yeah. Okay? Whatever. Now, let's talk about on the back end. On the back end, here's what really happens. And this is true in every category. You got people that use FMLA, you have people that abuse FMLA, and you got people that misuse FMLA, okay? We want everybody to use their FMLA. We really do. I mean, it's a good thing. We want them to use it concurrent with their paid leave time, whatever that may be. Now, there are going to be those who abuse it or misuse it, and on those, all they're doing is they're just showing us their real character. The reality is you don't want them when they come back, but you can't fire them during that 12 weeks, okay? So there has to be strategy here. This is not strategy with a bad heart, strategy with a good heart. We're trying to do the best thing for the citizens of our county, which means we want the best people that can work there, which means we want people that don't abuse or misuse their FMLA. Because they'll abuse or misuse their FMLA, they'll abuse or misuse other things on the job, okay? And they're not stealing from you, but in effect, if somebody, like the one back there that's jacking you around for the whole 12 weeks and you can't put a finger on what's going on, well, they figured it out. They all read these policies, believe me. And they know there's 12 weeks out there. If they can conjure up a reason, they will use that. Well, instead of looking at it as, I hate that they're using their FMLA leave, go the other side and say, they're telling me the kind of person they really are, and as soon as I get them off of their FMLA leave, I'm going to deal with them. Okay? Now, we can't do it in a retaliatory manner. Again, that's where strategy is. Now, we really have to do the truth. In other words, we have to say, I'm not retaliating, but on the other hand, I'm not going to get jacked around either. And so we deal with that then, okay? So you want them to burn that FMLA time in any category. If they really need it, let them have it. If they don't really need it, then we got to at least catch them when they're not on FMLA and then deal with the underlying issue of why their employment needs to be terminated. Does that make sense to you? Okay? What we need y'all to do is to help us by really asking us when you get in one of these difficult areas. And we want you to help us by forcing the issue of burning up that FMLA time concurrent with your other available paid leave time. Okay? It's kind of fun in a way.
Strange sense
Yeah,
of
it's
fun.
like, you jack me around, I jack you around back. But we want to do it, again, with the right heart on it. So, any questions on that? Yes, ma'am.
What do you say if the employee says, well, if I have sick time, I don't want to use FMLA?
They don't have that choice. Okay? They do have that choice within that little narrow window that Kaylen was explaining.
Just a cold virus or something, you know. If someone just has a cold, then they do have that choice. But if they're entitled to FMLA and we believe they're entitled to FMLA, then we can essentially force them to use it or terminate them for not coming back, you know.
The definition will be in the model policy that we have this afternoon. And so we're going to get hyper-technical. We can pull that out and read the statutory definition. And the point is, not all sicknesses fit the statutory definition. So you can be sick and not be able to come to work, but you can be not qualifying under that definition until you hit that 3 days. You see what I'm saying? So, because the real purpose of it, it's really called the Family and Medical Leave Act. The real purpose is to enable us to discharge our familial duties, you know, as parents and grandparents, children and all that for our parents. And then the other is for medical, and that's really for these things that are that hit us out of the blue. It's not intended necessarily for every runny nose that comes along. But the flip side is, if you have somebody who is continually being sick, then it does kick in, because they can't just continue to take advantage. Because that's why sick leave has a limited number of days. Okay? Because usually the disincentive for not taking advantage of it is that you don't get paid. Okay? Well, FMLA gives you a non-paid extension on that if you have other available leave time. Really, you got employees out there that want to save their leave time, and then you got employees out there that want to use their leave time. And those that want to use their leave time, they're not good stewards of their own life, and probably they're not a good steward of their county life. Does that make sense? So, all right, I just want to make that point.
And most often, people take advantage of intermittent FMLA leave, and if that's something that comes up that we want to get a second opinion on, always call us. I mean, I want all my counties to always call me before they make a decision on FMLA leave, because, you know, it's just can be complicated in a really touchy area of the law. But the intermittent leave is, you know, people take advantage of that so much, and so that is something that where we can get a second opinion from a doctor. I think you both had questions.
Well, talking about the intermittent leave.
Yes, ma'am.
We have an employee who is using his FMLA for a heart condition.
Mhm.
He's off for a couple of weeks, and he has the intermittent where he has to go back to the doctor and stuff like that for that. Well, last week on his timesheets, he had 4 days that he missed, and he put it down as FMLA, but it didn't have anything to do with the reason why he was on FMLA.
What, you know why he missed?
Said he had bronchitis.
And he told, I mean, so.
No, it's not on Facebook, but.
The best way to find out information.
So it wasn't what he was on FMLA for, but it was something different that probably could have, but how does that work?
Well, I mean, technically, like Mike said, we want them to use up their FMLA leave. So if he's saying it's FMLA leave, I would kind of leave it alone, because he's the one who said it was for FMLA leave. Now, technically, it wasn't, but we want him to use it up, so. You know, if he says it, then we don't know, we don't know for sure. He said it was on bronchitis, but he might just be, lying on Facebook. It could be because of his heart condition. We don't know what's going on. If you say it's FMLA leave, we're gonna let you say it's FMLA leave. Now, we had to worry about we had to worry more about when we're saying it's FMLA leave, not when the employee is telling us it is in that situation.
So basically, you're just saying if you're out more than 3 days, maybe be proactive and contact them.
Yes.
And then, if they're gonna have any kind of surgery, be proactive again.
Yes.
And say, always offer that.
And we had to be careful because of the Americans with Disabilities Act. We go out the way we go into it. But, because we don't want to say, we think you have this, or we think you have that. Morris will send a letter, and it's something that I would draft with you, and that we could talk about and discuss it. But we'll say, we think that you're entitled to FMLA leave, you've missed X date to X date. Here's the paperwork, this is what we think your FMLA leave will end. If this is not correct, please reach out and contact us, and we'll discuss what's going on. And I would just word it like that.
And if you know somebody's having surgery, go ahead and do that on the front end also.
Yes.
Just in case something happens.
Yes.
Good, better, and different from the
And
surgery.
technically, under FMLA, an employee is supposed to inform you that they're going to be taking leave as soon as possible. So if they find out they're having a surgery 30 days, they're supposed to tell you that 30 days beforehand. Now, I don't know if most of them don't, we're not going to terminate them from not doing it, but they can apply for FMLA leave in advance. It doesn't have to be right when it's happening. I'm also supposed to discuss military leave. There's really only one rule. We're in favor of veterans. We're pro-veteran, pro-military, pro-service member. We're always on their side. So if they need to take leave or they need to do anything like that, you just say, hey, we want to do whatever we can do to help you. Just provide me with whatever paperwork you have from your command officer, and we'll get it taken care of. The only thing about FMLA leave that is different with service members is they can get, a covered service member can get 26 weeks, or if an employee needs to care for their spouse or child or parent that has been a service member and was injured in the line of duty, then they can also get 26 weeks. So it can extend FMLA leave beyond the 12 weeks. There's also the area of law called USERA that covers service members, and just a real life example of something that happened from someone I know that's not a county employee, but is in the private sector. They interviewed someone, he was not an HR director, he did not know anything about USERA. The employee that interviewed with him was in the National Guard, and they needed the employee to work on Saturdays. And the employee or the interviewee said, I cannot work on Saturdays, I have to go to training, I'm in the National Guard. The interviewer, not knowing anything about USERA, said, well, we can't hire you because we need someone to work on Saturdays. And they got into big trouble. So something as small as that you might not even think about, like they did need someone to work on Saturdays, and he wasn't available, and that's what the position was for, included Saturdays and weeks too. I mean, anything that has to do with a service member, be it so careful, call us. We're always pro-service member, pro-veteran. Just call us and we'll make sure that we can get whatever they need, we're gonna get it worked out for them. I think that's all I have. I mean, it's almost lunchtime. I saw them sitting out back, or out there. Do y'all have any?
That just made me think of something. Back to FMLA has nothing to do with military. How far do you liberally interpret the word family? And the example is an employee who says, I'm the legal guardian of my disabled brother.
Mm-hmm. I know that adult siblings are not covered by FMLA. So it's child, spouse, parent. But if you're a legal guardian, I can see that technically being covered by the FMLA because they would probably be considered your child, under the law, and so I can see that being covered. But yeah, no, I know specifically an adult brother has not been covered by FMLA. Any other questions? Yes, sir?
What's the most common question you get?
On FMLA or in general?
FMLA.
The most common question, it's not just a question of an issue I get, is, hey, this person's already used up all their sick and vacation, can I fire them? No, they probably are entitled to FMLA leave, they've had open heart surgery, or they have a major heart condition. Well, I don't want to give them 12 more weeks, they've already used their sick and vacation. Well, we need to give them 12 weeks. That's the most common issue that I have come up.